Hi everyone, welcome to a Detour. I'm Cecily, I'll be your instructor today. We're going to be looking at sun salutations, that super common, sometimes maybe a bit boring warm-up exercise that happens at the start of a lot of yoga classes. We've kind of come up with a different way of approaching them and I think you're going to love it. So join me on the mat and we'll get started. So one thing we feel is super important to address before delving into sun salutations is to give the wrists a bit of a warm-up before we really use them for weighted support. So I'm just going to come down onto the hands and knees and walk my hands around here in a circle, pointing the fingers into different directions just to give my wrists a little bit of information about the different ranges that they might want to have access to. Once I find my maximum range in one direction, then I just move the hands in and circle going the other way. Once I hit that sweet spot where I kind of feel like I'm in a new zone than what I'm used to, I might just pause there and move around a little bit, playing around with bending the elbows into that, keeping them straight, and shifting into different loaded positions. Then I'm just going to flip them, so the fingers are going to turn inward to begin with. I'm on the backs of the hands, and then I'll start to walk around again. If it feels super intense to be on the back of the hands like this, simply walk your hands in a little bit closer to your knees so there's less load in your arms and more in your legs. And then we'll go the opposite direction. Throw in a couple of wrist push-ups here. Couple with the fingers pointing inward. Maybe a few with the fingers pointing back with the hands a little wider. And we'll turn the fingers out and do a couple more there. Ooh, it's a little awkward. Awkward is not bad. It's just different. And then we'll reset the hands and just see if that feels like enough of a warm-up for your wrist today. Feel free to do more, press pause, and then come back when you're ready. I'm going to shift up off of my knees, walk the hands back towards my feet here, and just do a little bit of a diagnostic self-assessment on my hamstrings, noticing how that forward fold's feeling today, noticing the difference between bending the knees versus keeping them a little bit more straight, and maybe deciding on what feels best for you. And then as you make your way up to standing, that could be a roll up through the spine, keeping it rounded, or you might choose to lift the chest and hinge up instead. Then let's walk up to the front of the mat and get started. So standing tall, let's connect to the breath, noticing where the breath is moving in your body. Sometimes it helps to use the hands for some feedback, one on the abdomen, one on the chest, and just bringing that breath down into the belly, so it's not a high chest breathing that can cause stress. And then see if we can distribute that belly breath out into the sides and even into the back. Let's try and keep that breath going throughout our practice here. Arms will come down by the sides, rooting down into the floor through your feet and lifting up through the top of the head. Finding the length in the spine. Then with the next breath in, we'll reach the arms over the head. And as I reach up, I'm actively going to send the arms towards the ceiling, stretching through the fingertips, letting my shoulder blades there lift a little bit rather than pulling the shoulder blades down, using that lift to bring some traction to my spine. Then I'll soften the knees. Think of tipping the pelvis forward through my hip hinge from the fingertips down toward the floor. Then as the hands come toward the shin bones, I'm lengthening through my chest. I'm thinking here of dragging my shin bones backwards, reaching my heels backwards to turn on the hamstrings here, using them to keep me grounded rather than having to grip through my toes. Then I'll bend the knees again, plant the hands, and step back to my plank. You're welcome to use your knees here in a half plank on the floor or keeping the legs straight and finding that strength, reaching through the heels and then drawing forward to the top of the head. The shoulders here maintain a protracted position, so watch that we're not sinking down through the chest. Driving through the fingertips, Think of pulling the mat toward you and then using your feet to drag the mat towards your wrists. Find that shake. And using that pull, I start to bend the elbows, lowering myself to the mat in one piece. Once I get there, I relax the feet for a moment, make sure that everything feels relatively comfortable in the lower back. And then I'm going to let my hands lift. As the hands float off the floor, I'm actively driving my hips down into the mat. That means the bum is on. I'm using the glutes to extend the hips, and then using the lift of the elbows and the wrist to wake up the upper back and my lats. I use that activation there as I press the hands and slowly lift toward upward facing dog, keeping the head in line with the spine. On this first one, let's drop the knees from there, tuck the toes under, and then shift back, keeping the knees bent. So in this first down dog, I want to look for length in the spine rather than make it just about length in my legs. Can we move the pelvis here? Can you feel the difference between tipping the tailbone up and tucking the tailbone down? Think of going to the medium spot where it's not really hyperextended, nor are you tucking under like a cat pose. We're going to think of drawing that tailbone straight up and back towards the opposite corner behind you, where the wall meets the ceiling. And then I press through the arms. And again, think of using that work through my hands to send more length through my spine. And then I'll look towards the hands, walking high on my toes, keeping the arms straight, maybe lifting to the fingertips to give myself a little bit more space to come forward, and then reset in that forward bend halfway up. Give my neck a little bit more length here, reset that activation through the hamstrings. And then if you want to fold forward, let everything relax for a moment, let the head come down. And then we'll rise up, reaching the arms overhead, breathing in. And then letting the breath out as the arms come back down. We'll go again now with the knees bent. So as I sit back, I'm thinking of tracking my hips behind the heels, so my heels here are heavier than the toes, and then lengthening up and out through the arms, active reach again through the fingertips to create traction through the spine. Let's hold for one more breath. And then find that forward fold, let the head relax for a moment. And then we'll come up into that halfway point where I lift the chest, lengthen out through the top of the head, and re-engage the back line of the legs before finding the floor with the hands and stepping back toward that plank again. Finding the plank, find the protraction in the shoulders. Find the pull, hands towards toes, toes towards wrists, elbows bend. Once I lower, rolling those shoulders back, lifting the hands, driving the hips down. Find a little bit more squeeze of elbows moving toward each other. As the hands press the floor, you're welcome to stay here, a little cobra pose, or again, into upward facing dog with the arms straightening. If you're comfortable from there, rolling over your toes, go ahead. Shifting back toward downward dog. And then we have the option here. If you're comfortable from downward dog, stepping forward, go ahead and walk that right foot up or step it to your thumb. If you'd rather drop your knees first, then that right foot can come ahead. Okay? We're all going to take the hands up off the floor and look for the alignment here of that left hip underneath the left knee and then reaching up through the arms. As my arms come up, I'm not bringing the hands together. I'm simply keeping the wrists in line with the shoulders and using the arms to really lift my back ribs up toward the ceiling. Taking a breath there, bringing a lot of length into the back of your neck. And then I'll exhale onto the hands, stepping back into my downward dog. And from there, again, your left foot can go forward right away, or we'll drop the knees down and step the left. Once I'm in that position, notice again that it wasn't a huge step. I'm just keeping that knee underneath the hip, actively using my right bum here to open up the hip flexors. And then I add to that the upward reach of the arms. Feeling that the sides of my body connect to the sides of my hands as everything reaches a little bit higher. And then down towards the floor, stepping back, finding my downward facing dog again, or resting in child's pose. Knees down, forehead down. When you're ready, let's walk or hop or step the feet forward again towards the hands. Find that halfway up. Move into that forward fold. Bend the knees as much as you need to. And then rise to standing. Lowering the arms. One more time, bending the knees again. Keeping the heels heavy, the toes light as the arms reach up. And then exhaling over. Lengthening out, reaching through the chest, activating the legs. Bringing it back. Let's just step the left foot this time. Bending into that right knee. The back leg will stay straight. Arms will come up all the way over the head. And as I reach up higher to the sides of my hands, I lengthen the sides of my body as well. And then exhaling onto your hands, stepping forward with the left foot, pausing here, just bringing the breath back to a natural rhythm for a moment. And then we'll reset to bring the right foot back. Bend that left knee, rising up. Finding that sense of strength through that right glute again, opening up through that right hip, lengthening up through back ribs. And with the last one, we'll step back to plank. Find that pulling strength again of feet toward hands, hands toward feet, lowering down in one piece. Activating the back line, hips pressing down, elbows pulling up and back, driving down through the hands to lift the chest. And back again toward downward facing dog. Pausing here, coming back to your breathing. Lowering to the knees when you're ready. Folding the hands back toward your child's pose. Feel free to stay in your child's pose as long as it feels good to be there, or repeat that whole sequence again, adding in your own variations. I look forward to seeing you next time as we follow the detour together.